Alaska contains more coastline than all other U.S. states combined. 33,904 miles of tidal shoreline, compared to 12,383 miles for the remaining 49 states together. If you walked every mile of Alaska's coast at 3 miles per hour, 8 hours a day, it would take you nearly 4 years to complete the journey. Right now, there are glaciers in Alaska that have existed for over 100,000 years, slowly carving valleys through mountains, holding within their ice the atmospheric history of civilizations that rose and fell without ever knowing they existed. In the summer, parts of Alaska experience 24 hours of continuous daylight, and in winter, 24 hours of darkness. Entire months where the sun never rises, where day and night lose all meaning, where time itself feels suspended. And here's what almost nobody realizes. Alaska is so vast that if you placed it over the contiguous United States, it would stretch from the Atlantic Ocean nearly to the Pacific, covering more than 20 states. But let me start from the beginning. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. This is a space for calm exploration, where we examine the profound truths hidden in the world's most remote places, not to conquer them, but to understand the depths of what exists beyond the edges of ordinary experience. If you're new here, this channel is dedicated to exploring complex subjects with gentleness and depth, making knowledge a companion to rest, rather than a source of restlessness. If you'd like to join us for more journeys like this one, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe and turn on notifications. Your presence here means everything. Tonight, we're going to explore Alaska. Not the Alaska of tourism brochures or adventure films, but the hidden details, the geological mysteries, the quiet extremes, and the profound strangeness of a place so large and wild that it defies comprehension. This isn't about conquest or exploration. It's about understanding what it means for a place to be truly untamed, truly vast, truly beyond human scale. Settle in. Let the world around you fade. And let's discover together what this final frontier reveals about the limits of the known world. The mathematics of vastness. Alaska covers 665,384 square miles, more than twice the size of Texas, larger than all but 18 sovereign nations. If you combined California, Montana, and Texas, Alaska would still be larger. But statistics alone don't capture the reality of that scale. There are regions of Alaska where you could walk for weeks without encountering another human, where no roads penetrate, where the landscape exists as it has for millennia, unchanged, unmarked, unwitnessed. The wilderness isn't something Alaska contains. Wilderness is what Alaska fundamentally is, punctuated by small human settlements clinging to coastlines and river valleys like islands in an ocean of untamed land. The glaciers that hold ancient air. Alaska contains approximately 100,000 glaciers, covering about 5% of the state's total area. These glaciers aren't just frozen water, they're time capsules. As snow accumulates and compresses into ice over centuries, it traps air bubbles from the atmosphere of that era. Scientists core these glaciers, extracting ice formed thousands of years ago, analyzing the trapped air to understand historical climate conditions. The ice remembers. It holds within its crystalline structure the atmospheric composition from ages when mammoths walked the earth, when humans had not yet crossed into the Americas. To touch glacier ice is to touch preserved time, frozen evidence of air breathed by creatures extinct for millennia. What happens during polar night? In Barrow, now Utqiagvik, Alaska's northernmost town, the sun sets in mid-November and doesn't rise again until late January. 67 days of continuous darkness. This isn't merely long nights, it's the complete absence of day. For over 2 months, the sun never appears above the horizon. People adjust in various ways. Light therapy lamps, altered sleep schedules, community gatherings to combat isolation. But the psychological weight of endless darkness is profound. Your circadian rhythms, evolved over millions of years to respond to light, are suddenly operating without their fundamental cue. Some people experience seasonal affective disorder so severe they must leave. Others adapt, finding strange beauty in the darkness, in auroras dancing across perpetual night skies, in the intimacy of community bound by shared experience of an extreme no Southerner can truly understand. The volcanoes that never rest. Alaska contains over 130 volcanoes, 50 of which have been active within recorded history. The Aleutian Arc, a chain of volcanic islands stretching across the North Pacific, represents one of Earth's most volcanically active regions. Mount Redoubt, which erupted as recently as 2009, sent ash clouds 50,000 feet into the atmosphere, disrupting air travel across the region. But many Alaskan volcanoes are so remote that they could erupt without anyone directly witnessing it. Their eruptions detected only by seismographs and satellite imagery. These are mountains that reshape themselves, that expel their interiors violently, that remind us the earth beneath our feet is not solid and stable but dynamic, molten, barely contained by a thin crust we mistakenly believe is permanent. How the earthquake changed everything. On March 27, 1964, a magnitude 9.2 earthquake, the second most powerful ever recorded, struck south-central Alaska, lasting 4.5 minutes. 4.5 minutes of the earth moving, of ground behaving like liquid, of reality itself becoming unstable. The quake raised some sections of coastline by 38 feet and lowered others by 8 feet, permanently altering the geography. Tsunamis, generated by underwater landslides, killed people as far away as California. In Valdez, the entire waterfront slid into Prince William Sound. Buildings that had stood for decades collapsed in seconds. Survivors described the surreal experience of watching the ground roll in waves, of losing all sense of up and down, of the world revealing itself as far less solid than they'd believed. The earthquake killed 139 people and caused over $300 million in damage. But it also revealed the immense tectonic forces constantly at work beneath Alaska, where the Pacific Plate subducts under the North American Plate, storing energy that will someday be released again. The animals that thrive in extremes. Alaska is home to the largest bears in the world, Kodiak brown bears that can weigh over 1,500 pounds and stand 10 feet tall. These bears are so large that they've diverged genetically from other brown bears, isolated on Kodiak Island for 12,000 years, evolving in response to abundant salmon runs and lack of predators. But size isn't Alaska's only biological extreme. Wood frogs freeze solid during winter. Their hearts stop, their breathing ceases. Up to 70% of their body water turns to ice, yet they survive. Come spring, they thaw and resume life as if nothing happened. This ability, called cryopreservation, involves producing glucose that acts as antifreeze, protecting cells from damage during freezing. These frogs are effectively dead for months, then alive again. A biological resurrection that happens quietly in forests across Alaska every year. What the midnight sun reveals about time. During summer solstice in northern Alaska, the sun doesn't set for weeks. In Barrow, continuous daylight lasts from mid-May through late July, nearly 3 months without night. Children play outside at midnight. People mow lawns at 2 a.m. The boundaries between day and night dissolve. This constant light affects psychology in ways opposite to winter darkness. Some people experience euphoria and hyperactivity. Others struggle to sleep. their bodies confused by light that never suggests rest. Time becomes abstract when the sun refuses to set. Without darkness to mark endings, days blur together, minutes and hours losing distinctiveness. Some residents cover windows completely, creating artificial night. Others surrender to the light, sleeping when exhausted regardless of clock time, living according to internal rhythms rather than solar cues. The purchase that changed nations. In 1867, the United States purchased Alaska from Russia for $7.2 million, about 2 cents per acre. Secretary of State William Seward negotiated the deal, facing ridicule from critics who called it Seward's folly and Seward's icebox. They believed Alaska was worthless, too cold, too remote, too barren. Within decades, gold was discovered, proving the purchase's value. By World War II, Alaska's strategic position became crucial for defending North America. Today, Alaska's natural resources, oil, gas, minerals, fisheries, are worth trillions. But the purchase wasn't just economic. It represented a geopolitical shift, removing Russian presence from North America, expanding American territory by nearly 600,000 square miles. A decision mocked as foolish became one of the most advantageous land acquisitions in history. Sometimes vision requires seeing value where others see only emptiness. The indigenous peoples who have always known. Long before European contact, Alaska was home to diverse indigenous peoples: Inuit, Yupik, Aleut, Tlingit, Haida, Athabaskan, and others, who had lived there for at least 15,000 years. These weren't primitive cultures struggling to survive. They were sophisticated societies adapted perfectly to extreme environments. They developed technologies for hunting marine mammals in icy waters, for preserving food through long winters, for navigating by stars and currents, for constructing homes from available materials that provided remarkable insulation. Their languages contained words for dozens of types of snow and ice, distinguishing conditions in ways English never could. When Europeans arrived, they didn't discover Alaska. They entered a world already known, already named, already home to peoples who understood the land better than newcomers ever would. The tragedy of contact wasn't just disease and displacement, but the dismissal of knowledge accumulated over millennia, the assumption that Western understanding was superior to indigenous wisdom, proven by 15,000 years of successful inhabitation. How deep the permafrost goes. Beneath much of northern Alaska lies permafrost, ground that has remained frozen for thousands of years, in some places extending down 2,000 feet. This permanently frozen soil creates unique challenges and opportunities. Buildings must be constructed on pilings that penetrate through the active layer, the surface layer that thaws seasonally, into the permafrost. Otherwise, they'd sink as the ground beneath them alternately freezes and thaws. But permafrost isn't just an engineering challenge, it's a frozen archive. Preserved within it are the remains of extinct animals, mammoths, steppe bison, ancient horses, so well preserved that their flesh, hair, and even stomach contents remain intact. Scientists extract these remains, studying them to understand ecosystems that vanished 10,000 years ago. The permafrost holds history, keeping the past frozen in stasis, waiting for someone to unearth it. What the salmon runs mean for ecosystems. Every year, millions of salmon return to Alaskan rivers to spawn, swimming from the ocean, battling upstream through rapids and waterfalls, driven by instinct to return to the exact stream where they were born. This annual migration brings nutrients from the ocean deep into inland ecosystems. Bears catch salmon, eating them along riverbanks, leaving carcasses that fertilize the soil. Decomposing salmon bodies release nitrogen and other nutrients that enrich forests, stimulating growth of trees that depend on this yearly influx of marine-derived nutrients. Researchers estimate that up to 80% of the nitrogen in streamside vegetation comes from salmon. The fish connect ocean and forest, creating a nutrient highway that sustains both. Without salmon, Alaskan forests would be fundamentally different. Smaller trees, less biodiversity, altered species composition. The entire ecosystem is built on the sacrifice of salmon who return, spawn, die, and in dying nourish the land. The sound of ice breaking. Glacial ice makes sounds, deep booms, sharp cracks, eerie groans. As glaciers flow slowly downward, internal stresses build. Ice fractures suddenly, releasing energy audibly. Crevasses open with sounds like gunshots. Seracs, ice towers, collapse without warning, creating roars that echo across valleys. And when glaciers calve, when sections break off and fall into water, the sound is thunderous, followed by waves that surge outward. These sounds are evidence of movement, of ice responding to gravity and pressure, of ancient snow transformed by compression into something both solid and fluid. To hear glacier ice break is to witness geological processes in real time, to be reminded that even ice, which seems eternal and unchanging, is constantly moving, constantly breaking, constantly becoming something different. What lives beneath the ice? Even in Alaska's most extreme environments, life persists. Ice worms, tiny, segmented worms about an inch long, live their entire lives within glaciers, feeding on algae and pollen that accumulates on ice surfaces. These worms are so adapted to cold that temperatures above 40 degrees Fahrenheit are fatal to them. Warmth kills them as surely as freezing kills warm-blooded animals. They migrate vertically within glaciers, moving deeper when surface temperatures rise, emerging when temperatures drop. They represent an entirely different relationship with temperature, a life form that thrives where we die and dies where we thrive. Their existence challenges assumptions about life's requirements, demonstrating that what seems uninhabitable to one organism is perfect habitat for another. Life doesn't just tolerate extremes, it sometimes requires them. How the Northern Lights are born. The aurora borealis, Northern Lights, appears frequently in Alaska's skies, especially during winter darkness. These shimmering curtains of green, purple, and red light result from solar wind particles colliding with Earth's magnetic field and atmosphere. When charged particles strike oxygen and nitrogen molecules, they excite them, causing them to emit light. The colors depend on altitude and which gases are involved. Green from oxygen at lower altitudes, red from oxygen higher up, blue and purple from nitrogen. Indigenous peoples developed various explanations for auroras. Some believed they were spirits of ancestors. Others saw them as omens or messages. Science explains the mechanism, but doesn't diminish the awe. To stand beneath auroras as they dance silently across the sky, shifting, rippling, appearing and disappearing, is to witness the invisible forces that surround Earth made visible, to see the solar wind painted in light. The town's accessible only by air or sea. Many Alaskan communities have no road connections to the rest of the state or nation. Juneau, Alaska's capital, is inaccessible by car. You must fly or take a ferry. Hundreds of smaller villages are similarly isolated, connected to the outside world only by plane or boat. This isolation creates unique economics and psychology. Groceries cost 2 or 3 times what they cost in the lower 48, shipped by air or seasonal barge. Fresh produce is rare and expensive. Communities become tightly knit by necessity. When you can't easily leave, when winter storms can prevent flights for days or weeks, when help is hours away, you depend on your neighbors in ways urban residents never experience. This isolation isn't always chosen, but it creates a particular kind of resilience, a self-reliance born from knowing you're fundamentally on your own. What the oil pipeline represents. The Trans-Alaska Pipeline System stretches 800 miles from Prudhoe Bay on the Arctic Ocean to Valdez on the Pacific, carrying crude oil across a landscape of extremes. The pipeline crosses 3 mountain ranges, over 800 rivers and streams, and traverses regions where temperatures can drop to minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit or rise to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Much of it is elevated on supports to prevent permafrost from melting and to allow caribou migration beneath it. Since beginning operation in 1977, it has transported over 18 billion barrels of oil. The pipeline represents both Alaska's wealth and its environmental controversies. It brought economic prosperity, but also ecological risk. The 1989 Exxon Valdez oil spill, though not directly the pipeline's fault, demonstrated the consequences of industrial extraction in pristine wilderness. The pipeline is both marvel of engineering and symbol of humanity's complicated relationship with wild places, our need for resources in tension with our desire to preserve what remains untouched. The glaciers that are retreating. Alaska's glaciers are melting faster than they're accumulating new ice. Exit Glacier has retreated over a mile since the late 1800s, with markers showing where it stood in previous decades. A timeline of disappearance. Mendenhall Glacier, near Juneau, is thinning and retreating, revealing landscapes that haven't seen sunlight in centuries. Some glaciers are losing 50 feet of thickness per year. This retreat isn't just about losing ice, it's about losing water storage. Glaciers act as frozen reservoirs, releasing water slowly throughout summer, sustaining rivers and ecosystems during dry periods. As glaciers shrink, this buffering effect diminishes. Rivers fed by glacial meltwater will eventually see reduced summer flows, affecting salmon, drinking water, and hydroelectric power. The glaciers that have existed for tens of thousands of years may disappear within lifetimes currently being lived. What has seemed permanent for all of human history is revealing itself as temporary. How winter survival requires different rules. In Alaska's interior, winter temperatures regularly drop below minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. At these temperatures, exposed skin freezes within minutes. Car engines must be kept running or plugged into block heaters, otherwise they won't restart. Tires become square from freezing, requiring vehicles to warm up before driving smoothly. Breath freezes in beards and eyelashes. Metal becomes brittle. Batteries die quickly. These aren't conditions where normal rules apply. Survival requires constant awareness of cold's dangers. Hypothermia can set in rapidly. Frostbite destroys tissue silently. Getting stranded, even briefly, can be fatal. Residents learn these lessons early. Carry extra clothing. Keep emergency supplies in vehicles. Never travel alone without telling someone your route. Winter in Alaska isn't just cold. It's an environment actively hostile to human life, requiring constant vigilance and respect for conditions that can kill quickly and without warning. The forests that grow despite everything. Boreal forests, also called taiga, cover much of interior Alaska, dominated by spruce, birch, and aspen. These forests grow in conditions that seem impossible: long, dark winters, short growing seasons, nutrient-poor soils. Trees here grow slowly, adding thin rings year by year, taking decades to reach sizes that would take years in temperate climates. But they persist, adapted to fire, to permafrost, to extreme temperatures. Boreal forests are more than trees. They're carbon sinks, storing vast amounts of carbon in both living biomass and permafrost soils. As permafrost thaws, there's concern that carbon stored for millennia will be released, accelerating climate change. These forests that seem eternal and unchanging are actually dynamic systems, responding to subtle shifts in temperature and precipitation, indicators of changes affecting the entire planet. What it means to be the last frontier. Alaska became the 49th state only in 1959, within living memory for many. It remains the least densely populated state, with just over 730,000 people in 665,384 square miles. Barely one person per square mile. There are more caribou than people, more bears than traffic lights. This emptiness isn't absence, it's presence of something else. Wilderness, space, silence. In most places, humans have reshaped the landscape so thoroughly that nature exists only in fragments, in parks and preserves. But in Alaska, nature is the default, the dominant reality, and human presence is the exception. Roads are interruptions in wilderness. Towns are small clearings in vast forests. Civilization is a thin veneer over ancient landscapes. This isn't romantic, it's simply fact. Alaska is the last place in America where wilderness still determines terms, where humans adapt to the land, rather than forcing the land to adapt to them. And as climate changes, as populations grow, as resources become scarcer, Alaska stands as a reminder of what the world once was, and, perhaps, a glimpse of what we risk losing entirely. The rivers that flow backward, Cook Inlet near Anchorage, experiences some of the highest tidal ranges in North America, up to 40 feet between high and low tide. This dramatic tidal shift creates a phenomenon called tidal bores, where incoming tides force rivers to temporarily flow backward, pushing walls of water upstream against the current. The Turn-Again Arm, a narrow branch of Cook Inlet, produces tidal bores that can reach 6 feet high, moving at speeds up to 15 miles per hour. The water rushes inland with such force that it creates waves surfers can ride for miles. To witness a river reversing itself, flowing uphill against gravity because the ocean's pull is stronger than the current, is to see familiar natural laws temporarily suspended. It's a reminder that tides, controlled by the moon's gravity, are forces powerful enough to overrule even rivers. What the sea otters reveal about ecosystems. Sea otters nearly went extinct in Alaska during the 18th and 19th centuries, hunted relentlessly for their fur, which is the densest of any mammal, with up to 1 million hairs per square inch. By 1911, only about 2,000 remained worldwide. Protection allowed populations to recover, and scientists discovered something remarkable. Sea otters are keystone species, whose presence fundamentally shapes entire ecosystems. Otters eat sea urchins, which eat kelp. Without otters, urchin populations explode and devour kelp forests, creating underwater deserts called urchin barrens. With otters, kelp forests thrive, providing habitat for hundreds of other species. The presence or absence of a single species can determine whether an entire ecosystem flourishes or collapses. Sea otters don't just live in kelp forests, they create and maintain them. Their survival is intertwined with the survival of everything else. How the mountains are still rising. The Alaska Range, which includes Denali, is actively growing, pushed upward by tectonic forces as the Pacific Plate collides with the North American Plate. Denali itself rises about 1 millimeter per year, though erosion from glaciers and weathering removes material at similar rates, creating a dynamic equilibrium between uplift and erosion. But this equilibrium isn't stable. Occasional earthquakes can suddenly raise or lower sections of mountains by feet. The 2002 Denali earthquake, magnitude 7.9, ruptured over 200 miles of fault line and shifted the landscape measurably. Mountains we perceive as eternal and unchanging are actually young, dynamic, constantly being built and torn down by competing forces. The Alaska Range is only about 6 million years old, geologically recent, and it's still growing, still being shaped, still becoming whatever it will ultimately be. The villages falling into the sea. Climate change is literally eroding Alaska's coastline. Villages like Kivalina and Shishmaref, built on barrier islands and coastal areas, are losing land to the ocean at accelerating rates. Permafrost that once held coastlines solid is thawing, making shores vulnerable to wave erosion. Sea ice that once protected coastlines during storms is forming later and melting earlier, leaving villages exposed to autumn storms that batter shores with increasing ferocity. Some communities have voted to relocate entirely, a process costing hundreds of millions of dollars and requiring abandonment of ancestral lands. Where else can people go when their entire homeland is disappearing? These aren't abstract climate change scenarios. They're lived experiences of people watching their villages crumble into the ocean, forced to choose between staying and risking everything, or leaving and losing their cultural connection to place. The future has arrived unevenly, but for coastal Alaska, it's already here. What lives in the darkness beneath glaciers? Beneath some Alaskan glaciers, scientists have discovered subglacial lakes, bodies of liquid water trapped between ice and bedrock, isolated from the atmosphere for thousands or even millions of years. These lakes contain microbial life, bacteria and other microorganisms that have evolved in complete darkness, feeding on chemicals dissolved from rocks rather than energy from the sun. These organisms represent a fundamentally different form of life, one that doesn't depend on photosynthesis at all. They demonstrate that life can persist in conditions previously thought uninhabitable. No light, minimal nutrients, crushing pressure from ice above. The discovery of these subglacial ecosystems has implications for astrobiology, suggesting that life might exist in similar conditions on other worlds, beneath the ice of Jupiter's moon Europa, or in subsurface oceans on Saturn's moon Enceladus. Alaska's glaciers contain not just frozen history, but hints of life's possibilities beyond Earth. The silence that defines remote places. In truly remote parts of Alaska, the silence is profound in ways urban residents rarely experience. No traffic sounds, no aircraft, no human voices, no mechanical hum. The silence isn't empty. It's filled with wind through trees, bird calls, the rustle of animals, the occasional crack of ice or snap of wood. But human-generated sound is absent. This silence affects psychology. Some find it peaceful, meditative, a respite from constant noise. Others find it unsettling, even frightening. The absence of familiar sounds creates anxiety, a feeling of exposure and vulnerability. Humans evolved in groups, and the sounds of other humans signal safety and community. Complete silence suggests isolation, potential danger. In Alaska's backcountry, you can experience silence so complete that your own heartbeat becomes audible. Your breathing loud, your footsteps thunderous. It's a silence that makes you aware of yourself as a physical presence in a landscape that doesn't acknowledge or care about your existence. How the wildfires are changing. Alaska experiences wildfire season every summer, but the fires are becoming larger, more frequent, and burning into areas that historically didn't burn. In 2015, over 5 million acres burned, an area larger than Massachusetts. These fires are driven by hotter, drier summers and earlier snowmelt. Boreal forests, adapted to occasional fires, regenerate after burning. But when fires become too frequent or too severe, Forests can't recover. They transition to grasslands or shrublands instead. Fire changes more than vegetation. It releases carbon stored in trees and permafrost, accelerating climate change. It destroys animal habitat, reduces air quality across entire regions, and threatens human communities. The smoke from Alaska's wildfires drifts as far as the East Coast, creating hazy skies thousands of miles away. What burns in Alaska affects air quality globally. The fires aren't just local events. They're contributions to atmospheric changes affecting the entire planet. What the moose population reveals about balance. Alaska's moose are the largest members of the deer family, with bulls weighing up to 1,600 pounds and standing 7 feet tall at the shoulder. They're remarkably adapted to Alaska. Long legs for walking through deep snow, specialized digestive systems for extracting nutrients from woody browse, the ability to close their nostrils while feeding underwater on aquatic plants. But moose populations fluctuate dramatically based on predation, disease, and winter severity. Harsh winters with deep snow cause starvation. Predation by wolves and bears controls populations. Ticks, which are increasing as winters warm, can kill moose through blood loss. A single moose can host tens of thousands of ticks. These population dynamics demonstrate that nature's balance isn't static. It's constant fluctuation, boom and bust cycles. Populations rising and crashing in response to countless variables. The moose that seem so dominant and well-adapted are actually vulnerable to changes in conditions, to shifts in predator populations, to parasites expanding their range as climate warms. The language that holds traditional knowledge. Many Alaska Native languages are endangered, spoken fluently by only a few dozen elders. Each language contains irreplaceable knowledge. Words for environmental conditions, place names that encode information about resources and dangers, oral histories spanning thousands of years. When a language dies, this knowledge disappears. The Alutiiq language has words distinguishing types of ice based on thickness, saltiness, and usability, distinctions crucial for safe travel. Yupik has dozens of words for snow, each describing specific conditions relevant to hunting and travel. These aren't just vocabulary, they're taxonomies of environment, ways of categorizing reality based on what matters for survival. Younger generations often speak only English, and with each elder who dies, another repository of ecological and cultural knowledge vanishes. Efforts to preserve and revitalize these languages face challenges. Small populations, geographic isolation, competing pressures from mainstream culture. The loss isn't just linguistic, it's epistemological, a way of knowing the world that can't be fully translated. How the Bering Land Bridge changed everything. During the last ice age, sea levels dropped enough that a land bridge emerged between Asia and North America, Beringia, connecting what are now Russia and Alaska. This wasn't just a narrow corridor. It was a subcontinent, up to 1,000 miles wide, with its own ecosystems and animal populations. Humans crossed this bridge, entering the Americas for the first time, beginning the colonization of two continents previously uninhabited by our species. Mammoths, horses, camels, and other megafauna roamed Beringia. When the Ice Age ended and sea levels rose, the land bridge submerged, becoming the Bering Strait and separating Asia from America. This geological accident determined migration patterns, isolated populations, and shaped human history. Alaska sits at the site of this ancient crossing, a place where continents once touched, where human prehistory pivoted, where the peopling of the Americas began. The land remembers, even if the bridge is now 180 feet beneath the ocean. What the grizzlies do before winter. Alaskan grizzly bears enter a state of metabolic suppression during winter. Not true hibernation, but close. Before denning, they enter hyperphagia, a period of intense eating where they consume up to 90 pounds of food daily, gaining hundreds of pounds in preparation for months without eating. They seek out salmon streams, berry patches, and anything high in calories. Once they den, usually in October or November, their body temperature drops only slightly, but their metabolism slows dramatically. They don't eat, drink, urinate, or defecate for 5 to 7 months. Their bodies recycle waste products, maintain muscle mass despite inactivity, and sustain fetuses if pregnant. It's a physiological feat humans can't replicate. We die from our own waste products within days. Understanding how bears accomplish this has medical implications for treating kidney disease, bone loss, and other conditions. Bears solve problems humans spend billions researching, and they do it effortlessly, instinctively, every winter. The auroras that carry messages. Indigenous peoples across the Arctic, including Alaskan natives, developed rich traditions around the northern lights. Some believed auroras were spirits of the dead. Others saw them as celestial beings. Some interpreted them as omens, predicting future events. The Yupik people traditionally believed that auroras were the spirits of animals they'd hunted, while the Tlingit saw them as spirits of ancestors communicating with the living. These interpretations weren't primitive superstitions. They were ways of understanding phenomena beyond the reach of traditional science, of assigning meaning to mysteries, of connecting observable events with spiritual beliefs. Modern science explains auroras through physics and chemistry, but that explanation doesn't necessarily provide meaning. The indigenous interpretations offered context, narrative, connection to the cosmos. Both ways of understanding have value. One tells us what auroras are. The other tells us what they might mean. How the fishing industry sustains communities. Commercial fishing is Alaska's largest private industry, harvesting over 5 billion pounds of seafood annually, about 60% of the entire U.S. seafood catch. This includes salmon, halibut, crab, pollock, and dozens of other species. For many coastal communities, fishing isn't just an industry, it's an identity, a way of life passed down through generations. Entire towns gear their calendars around fishing seasons. Families invest everything in boats and permits. The work is dangerous. Commercial fishing has one of the highest fatality rates of any occupation, but it's also lucrative for successful fishermen. The industry faces ongoing challenges: fluctuating fish populations, changing ocean conditions, international competition, debates over sustainability. Alaska's fisheries are generally considered well-managed, with strict quotas and monitoring. But the future is uncertain. As oceans warm and acidify, as fish populations shift northward, as international pressures increase, Alaska's fishing industry must adapt or face the same collapse that destroyed fisheries elsewhere. What Denali's height means. Denali, at 20,310 feet, is North America's tallest mountain. But that measurement is from sea level. The mountain's vertical rise from base to summit is even more impressive, about 18,000 feet, one of the greatest base-to-peak rises on Earth. This massive vertical relief creates its own weather systems. Denali generates storms, captures moisture from passing air masses, and creates conditions so severe that climbing seasons are limited to a few months each year. The mountain kills climbers regularly, not through technical difficulty, but through weather, altitude sickness, falls into crevasses, avalanches. Temperature on the summit can drop to -75 degrees Fahrenheit, with wind chills of -100 degrees Fahrenheit or lower. At such temperatures, exposed skin freezes almost instantly. Climbers can become disoriented, make fatal mistakes, or simply freeze despite protective equipment. Denali isn't malevolent, but it's indifferent. It creates conditions where human survival margins are razor thin. where small mistakes compound into fatal consequences. To stand on its summit is to occupy a place fundamentally hostile to human life, where existence itself requires constant vigilance and fortune. The town's built on stilts. Many Alaskan buildings, especially in permafrost regions, are constructed on pilings, posts driven deep into the frozen ground, elevating structures above the surface. This prevents building heat from melting permafrost beneath foundations, which would cause structures to sink and destabilize. The space beneath buildings allows cold air to circulate, maintaining frozen ground. Walking through these towns feels surreal. Buildings floating on legs, nothing touching the earth directly, everything suspended in air. It's a visual representation of Alaska's fundamental truth. Humans exist here only through constant adaptation, through engineering solutions to problems that don't exist elsewhere. You can't simply build on the ground. The ground itself isn't stable. Everything must be elevated, insulated, designed to prevent the very heat of human occupation from destroying the foundation beneath it. How the tundra comes alive. Arctic tundra seems barren. Treeless expanses of low vegetation, frozen solid much of the year. But during the brief summer, the tundra explodes with life. Wildflowers bloom, covering hillsides in color. Purple lupin, pink fireweed, white mountain avens. Mosquitoes emerge in clouds so thick they can kill caribou calves through blood loss. Birds migrate from as far as Antarctica to breed. Arctic terns, which have the longest migration of any animal, traveling up to 25,000 miles annually. Caribou give birth, their calves standing within hours, ready to travel with the herd. All this life is compressed into a few months, because winter allows no second chances. Everything must reproduce, grow, feed, and prepare for winter's return. The intensity is remarkable. Plants that might bloom for weeks in temperate climates bloom for days here, rushing through life cycles before frost returns. What the ice roads make possible. In winter, frozen rivers and lakes become highways. Ice roads connect remote communities, allowing trucks to deliver supplies too heavy or bulky for aircraft. The Dalton Highway, serving Alaska's North Slope oil fields, runs 414 miles, much of it crossing frozen ground and waterways. Truckers navigate these roads during the coldest months, when ice is thick enough to support massive loads, sometimes over 100,000 pounds. It's dangerous work. Thin ice, whiteout conditions, extreme cold, remoteness. If a truck breaks through ice, the driver may have minutes to escape before water and cold become fatal. These ice roads exist only seasonally, opening and closing based on temperature and ice thickness. As winters warm, the season for ice roads shrinks. They open later, close earlier, and some years the ice never reaches safe thickness. Communities dependent on ice roads for supplies face increasing isolation, another consequence of climate change already affecting daily life. The earthquakes that come without warning. Alaska experiences more earthquakes than all other U.S. states combined, averaging about 40,000 earthquakes per year, though most are too small to feel. This constant seismic activity results from Alaska's position on the Ring of Fire, where the Pacific Plate subducts beneath the North American Plate. Small quakes are routine. Alaskans barely notice magnitudes below 4.0, but major quakes can strike without warning. The 1964 earthquake demonstrated that devastating seismic events are not historical anomalies, but recurring features of life in Alaska. Another major quake will come. It's not a question of if, but when. This knowledge shapes how Alaskans build, where they locate critical infrastructure, how they prepare. Emergency supplies, earthquake drills, building codes designed for seismic events. These are necessary adaptations to living on geologically active land. The ground beneath Alaska is never fully at rest, never truly stable, always storing energy that will eventually release. How the whales navigate frozen seas. Beluga whales inhabit Alaska's coastal waters, including Cook Inlet, where they've become isolated from other populations. These whales are adapted to Arctic conditions: thick blubber for insulation, ability to navigate under ice using echolocation, lack of dorsal fin allowing them to swim beneath ice without injury. They're highly social, traveling in pods, communicating through complex vocalizations, clicks, whistles, and calls that earned them the nickname canaries of the sea. But Cook Inlet belugas are critically endangered. Only about 300 remain, down from over 1,000 in the 1990s. The decline is attributed to multiple factors: noise pollution from shipping disrupting echolocation, contaminants affecting reproduction, prey availability changes, historical hunting. Despite protections, the population hasn't recovered. Each year that passes without improvement increases the risk that Cook Inlet belugas will disappear entirely. Another species lost despite awareness and concern, demonstrating that understanding a problem doesn't guarantee ability to solve it. And so Alaska continues, vast and indifferent, shaped by forces too large for human control. Tectonic pressures, climate shifts, solar storms painting light across dark skies. It's a place where nature still dictates terms, where adaptation is mandatory, where the land itself reminds you constantly that you're a visitor in a realm that predates you and will outlast you. This isn't a landscape designed for comfort. It's a landscape that demands respect, humility, and recognition that there are places in the world where human will is subordinate to conditions we cannot change, only endure. The trees that record climate history. In Alaska's boreal forests, some trees are over 400 years old. Not tall or impressive, but ancient survivors in an environment where growth is slow. Scientists core these trees, extracting thin cylinders that reveal growth rings spanning centuries. Each ring represents a year, its width indicating growing conditions. Wide rings in favorable years, narrow rings during cold or dry periods. These rings are climate archives, recording temperature fluctuations, volcanic eruptions that cooled the planet, droughts, and favorable periods. By analyzing tree rings across many individuals, scientists reconstruct climate history extending back before written records existed. The trees remember what humans never witnessed: summers slightly warmer or colder, winters that came early or late, patterns invisible within a human lifetime, but clear across centuries. These quiet record keepers stand in forests, growing imperceptibly, adding a ring each year, writing climate history in wood. What the abandoned towns reveal across Alaska are ghost towns, settlements abandoned when resources depleted, when industries collapsed, when disasters struck. Kennecott, a copper mining town, operated from 1911 to 1938, then shut down when ore became unprofitable. Buildings remain, preserved by cold, dry air. Bunkhouses, the mill, the hospital, frozen in time, windows broken but structures largely intact. Walking through Kennecott is walking through stop time, seeing how people live during brief industrial booms, understanding how communities appear and disappear based on economic viability rather than intrinsic value of place. These towns aren't romantic ruins. They're evidence of extraction economies, of people drawn by resource wealth, building communities that lasted only as long as profits flowed. When the resources ended, so did the towns. Alaska is scattered with such places, evidence of human ambition meeting geographic reality. of the transient nature of settlement in harsh environments where survival depends on external economic forces. How the permafrost thaw reveals the past. As permafrost thaws, it exposes things buried for millennia. Mammoth tusks emerge from riverbanks, remarkably preserved. Ivory that retains its structure after 10,000 years of frozen storage. Ancient hunting tools, preserved perfectly, appear in places where no humans are known to have lived recently. Entire frozen animals, woolly mammoths, steppe bison, ancient horses, occasionally emerge, their flesh and hair intact enough that scientists can study their DNA, stomach contents, even reconstruct their appearance with precision impossible for species known only through fossils. This thawing archive is both scientific treasure and climate warning. The permafrost preserved these remains by staying frozen. Its thaw means we can study them, but it also means the conditions that preserved them are disappearing. We're simultaneously discovering the past and destroying the freezer that kept it intact. The birds that travel between poles. Arctic terns nest in Alaska during summer, then migrate to Antarctica for the southern summer, essentially experiencing 2 summers per year and almost no darkness. Their annual migration covers approximately 44,000 miles, the longest migration of any animal. These birds, weighing only about 4 ounces, traverse the planet from pole to pole, guided by magnetic fields, landmarks, and instincts we still don't fully understand. They experience more daylight than any other creature, following summer around the world. To be a tern is to live perpetually in light, in motion, never settling, always traveling toward the next feeding ground, the next nesting site. They demonstrate that survival strategies can be astonishingly extreme, that the solution to seasonal scarcity isn't to endure winter, but to fly to where winter isn't happening. What the glacial flower colors. Many Alaskan rivers run gray or turquoise, colors created by glacial flower, fine sediment ground from bedrock by moving glaciers. As glaciers flow, they act like massive sandpaper, pulverizing rock into powder so fine it remains suspended in meltwater. This suspended sediment scatters light, creating distinctive colors. The turquoise of glacial lakes, the milky gray of glacial rivers. The sediment eventually settles, accumulating in deltas and estuaries. But while suspended, it transforms water into something opaque and otherworldly. These rivers don't look like water. They look like liquid stone, like flowing minerals. The color is evidence of erosion, of mountains being ground down particle by particle, of landscapes being reshaped so gradually that change is invisible within human timescales, but undeniable over centuries. How the frontier myths distort reality. Alaska is often romanticized as the last frontier, a place where rugged individuals live free from society's constraints, where self-reliance and toughness define existence. This mythology attracts people seeking escape, adventure, or fresh starts. But the reality is more complex. Alaska has crime, social problems, substance abuse, domestic violence, rates that in some categories exceed national averages. The isolation that seems appealing can become oppressive. The darkness of winter contributes to depression and suicide rates that are among the highest in the nation. Many who arrive with frontier dreams leave within a few years, unable to cope with isolation, darkness, or the mundane realities of life in a place where groceries are expensive and entertainment options are limited. Alaska doesn't transform people. It reveals them. The toughness required isn't romantic self-reliance, but the ability to endure monotony, isolation, and conditions that test psychological resilience as much as physical capability. The cultural collision that continues. Alaska Native peoples face ongoing tension between traditional ways and modern pressures. Subsistence hunting and fishing, harvesting marine mammals, caribou, salmon, are central to cultural identity and food security. But these practices are regulated by federal and state laws that sometimes conflict with traditional practices. Climate change disrupts animal migrations, making traditional knowledge less reliable. Younger generations, educated in Western schools, sometimes lose fluency in native languages and traditional skills. The balance between preserving culture and adapting to modern economy is precarious. Some communities maintain strong cultural continuity. Others struggle with identity loss, poverty, and social dysfunction. The collision between indigenous and Western ways isn't historical. It's ongoing, playing out in decisions about resource development, education, land management, and cultural preservation. There are no easy resolutions, only negotiations between competing values and needs. What the sled dogs represent. Sled dogs, huskies, and malamutes bred for strength and endurance were once essential for transportation and survival in winter. They hauled supplies, carried mail, transported people across frozen landscapes. The Iditarod Trail sled dog race, covering over 1,000 miles from Anchorage to Nome, commemorates the 1925 Serum Run, when sled dog teams rushed diphtheria antitoxin to Nome during an epidemic, saving the town. Today, sled dogs are mainly used for recreation and racing, but they represent historical necessity transformed into cultural tradition. The bond between musher and dogs is profound. These aren't pets, but working partners, athletes bred and trained for a specific purpose. They thrive in cold that would kill most dogs, running for hours through conditions humans find unbearable. They're remnants of an earlier Alaska, when survival depended on animals, when speed was measured by dog teams rather than snowmobiles, when the relationship between humans and animals was based on mutual dependence rather than mere companionship. How the military shaped Alaska. World War II transformed Alaska from remote territory into strategic military asset. The Japanese invaded the Aleutian Islands, the only invasion of North American soil during the war, capturing Attu and Kiska. The U.S. built the Alaska Highway in 8 months, connecting Alaska to the continental road system for the first time. Military bases expanded, bringing thousands of personnel and infrastructure investment. After the war, Alaska's military importance grew during the Cold War. Its proximity to the Soviet Union made it crucial for early warning systems, bomber bases, and missile defense. Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson near Anchorage remains significant. This military presence brought jobs, infrastructure, and population, accelerating Alaska's path to statehood. But it also brought environmental contamination, cultural disruption, and dependence on federal spending. The military didn't just defend Alaska. It fundamentally shaped its economy, demographics, and relationship with the federal government. The ice that tells time in layers. Ice cores extracted from Alaskan glaciers and ice fields contain air bubbles, dust, volcanic ash, and other materials deposited over thousands of years, creating stratigraphic records of atmospheric conditions and environmental events. Each layer represents a specific time period. Scientists can date layers by counting them like tree rings or by identifying volcanic eruptions with known dates. Analyzing these cores reveals past temperatures, precipitation patterns, atmospheric composition, and major events like volcanic eruptions that ejected ash globally. The ice holds evidence of human activity too. Increased lead levels corresponding to Roman mining, later drops when those civilizations collapsed, rises during the Industrial Revolution. The ice doesn't just record climate, it records human impact on the atmosphere, preserved in frozen layers that predate instrumental records by millennia. We're reading Earth's memory, stored in ice. What happens when ships get trapped? Before modern icebreakers and accurate ice forecasting, ships regularly became trapped in Arctic ice. Some expeditions ended in disaster. Crews abandoned ships, attempted overland escapes, and froze or starved. The Franklin expedition, though not in Alaska, exemplifies the dangers. All 129 men died after ships became trapped in ice. Even today, ships can become trapped. In 1988, 3 gray whales were trapped in ice near Barrow, unable to reach open ocean. A massive rescue effort, involving icebreakers, helicopters, and international cooperation, freed 2. The third died. The incident revealed complex feelings about wildlife rescue in harsh environments. Was it worth spending millions to save individual whales when many animals die naturally in Arctic conditions? The question doesn't have a simple answer. It reflects tensions between valuing individual lives versus accepting natural processes, between intervention and acceptance of nature's indifference. How indigenous knowledge preserves what science misses. Alaska Native elders hold environmental knowledge accumulated over generations, where animals migrate, which plants are edible or medicinal, how weather patterns shift, where thin ice appears. This knowledge is empirical, tested by survival across centuries. Scientists increasingly collaborate with indigenous communities, recognizing that traditional knowledge complements scientific understanding. Elders notice changes scientists' instruments miss. Shifts in animal behavior, changes in ice formation timing, appearances of species never before seen in certain areas. This knowledge isn't written, it's oral, demonstrated, embedded in stories and practices. As elders die without passing knowledge to younger generations, fluent in both traditional ways and modern contexts, irreplaceable understanding disappears. Efforts to document traditional knowledge face challenges. Some knowledge is considered sacred or private, and translating experiential understanding into written form loses nuance. The archive exists in minds and practices, vulnerable to cultural disruption and generational disconnection. The mountains that have never been climbed. Despite Alaska's long mountaineering history, hundreds of peaks remain unclimbed, too remote, too dangerous, or simply not yet attempted. Some mountains lack names, appearing only on topographic maps as elevation contours. First ascents still happen regularly, not on major peaks but on obscure summits reached after arduous approaches through trackless wilderness. These unclimbed peaks represent a kind of geographic virginity, places where no human has stood, where the summit remains untouched. As helicopter access increases and adventure tourism expands, truly unexplored terrain shrinks. But Alaska's vastness ensures that remote corners remain, places where human presence is still rare enough to be noteworthy. These unclimbed mountains aren't challenges waiting to be conquered. They're reminders that the world still contains places untouched, unwitnessed, existing in their own right, rather than as destinations for human ambition. What the fog hides. Coastal Alaska experiences dense fog, particularly during summer when warm air moves over cold ocean water. This fog can persist for days, reducing visibility to near zero, grounding aircraft, and trapping boats in harbors. Before GPS, fog was deadly. Ships ran aground, planes crashed into mountainsides, people became disoriented and lost. Even now, fog is dangerous and disorienting. It transforms familiar landscapes into alien spaces, where sound behaves strangely, where distances become impossible to judge, where you can't see more than a few feet ahead. Fog creates isolation. You're alone even in proximity to others, cut off by visibility limits. There's something primal about fog-induced disorientation, a stripping away of sensory input that forces reliance on memory and dead reckoning. In fog, Alaska becomes even more mysterious, even more unknowable, wrapped in moisture that obscures everything beyond arm's reach. How the seasons dictate everything. In Alaska, seasons aren't just climatic variations. They're fundamentally different modes of existence. Summer allows construction, fishing, tourism, travel to remote areas, outdoor work. Winter shuts down many activities. Construction stops, some roads close, travel becomes difficult or impossible. Life contracts, focusing on indoor activities, maintenance, preparation for the next summer. This seasonal rhythm shapes economy, psychology, and culture. You can't simply do things whenever convenient. You must wait for the appropriate season. Projects require planning around short construction windows. Food must be preserved or imported. The constraint creates a different relationship with time. Patience isn't a virtue but a necessity. You cannot fight the seasons, only work within them. This creates a mindset foreign to those from places where seasons are mild variations, rather than determining factors of what's possible. The rivers that carve new paths. Alaskan rivers, particularly those fed by glacial melt, are constantly shifting, braiding across floodplains, eroding banks, depositing sediment that builds new channels. Aerial photos from different years show dramatically different river configurations. What was a main channel becomes a side channel. New channels appear where none existed. This dynamism makes infrastructure near rivers risky. Bridges must be overbuilt to span possible channel migration. Buildings must be set back from banks that might erode. The rivers aren't stable features but fluid processes, constantly reworking the landscape. To live near such rivers is to accept impermanence, to understand that the river doesn't respect human plans, that it will go where gravity and sediment load dictate, regardless of property lines or infrastructure. It's another reminder that Alaska's landscape remains fundamentally wild, resistant to permanent human control. What the long-distance pilots know, bush pilots, flying small aircraft to remote communities without airports, are essential to Alaska's connectivity. They land on gravel bars, beaches, frozen lakes, short dirt strips carved from forests. They fly in weather that grounds commercial airlines, navigating by landmarks, memory, and instinct. They deliver mail, groceries, emergency medical supplies, passengers. Their skill and risk-taking are legendary, flying through mountain passes in marginal weather, landing in crosswinds on strips barely longer than their aircraft. These pilots know Alaska intimately. Every mountain peak, every potential landing spot, every weather pattern. They're not just pilots, but essential infrastructure, human bridges connecting isolated communities to the larger world. They die regularly. Small plane crashes are common, caused by weather, mechanical failure, misjudgment. But they keep flying because without them, many communities would be completely cut off, unable to receive supplies or evacuate emergencies. How the winter darkness affects minds. Extended winter darkness affects brain chemistry. Reduced sunlight decreases serotonin production and disrupts circadian rhythms, contributing to seasonal affective disorder. Alaskans combat this with light therapy lamps, vitamin D supplements, and deliberate outdoor activity during the brief daylight hours. But for some, interventions aren't enough. Depression deepens. Some self-medicate with alcohol. Alaska's suicide rate is among the highest in the nation, particularly in rural areas and among young people. The darkness isn't just inconvenient. It's a mental health crisis that recurs annually. Communities organize activities, support groups, and wellness programs to help people through winter. But the darkness is inescapable. You can mitigate its effects, but not eliminate them. This is part of Alaska's cost. Beautiful summers are purchased with brutal winters that test psychological resilience as much as physical endurance. The balance between development and preservation. Alaska contains vast natural resources: oil, gas, minerals, timber, fish, creating ongoing tension between economic development and environmental preservation. The Arctic National Wildlife Refuge debate exemplifies this conflict. Should drilling be allowed in pristine wilderness to access oil reserves? Or should the area remain protected despite economic benefits? Different Alaskans answer differently based on values, economic needs, and visions of Alaska's future. Some see resources as opportunities for prosperity. Others view wilderness itself as the resource to protect. Native communities are often divided. Some support development for economic opportunities. Others fear cultural and environmental impacts. There's no simple resolution, only ongoing negotiation between competing goods, jobs and wilderness, prosperity and preservation, immediate needs and long-term consequences. Alaska forces these questions more starkly than most places because both the resources and the wilderness are so vast and valuable. What the petroglyphs record. Along Alaska's coastlines and rivers are petroglyphs, images carved into rock by indigenous peoples thousands of years ago. These images depict animals, humans, geometric patterns and symbols whose meanings are sometimes lost. Some petroglyphs are legible, clearly showing whales, salmon, or hunting scenes. Others are abstract, their significance known only to those who created them and perhaps to descendants who maintain oral traditions. These rock carvings are messages from the past, evidence of people who lived here long before written records, who found ways to mark their presence permanently. They're also vulnerable. Erosion, sea level changes, vandalism, and coastal development threaten many sites. The petroglyphs remind us that Alaska has human history extending back millennia, that the land we see as wild frontier was home to peoples who knew it intimately, who marked it with their own stories and meanings. How the future is uncertain. Alaska faces an uncertain future. Climate change is reshaping ecosystems, thawing permafrost, altering fish populations, and threatening coastal communities. The state's economy depends heavily on oil revenue, but oil production is declining, and global demand may decrease as renewable energy expands. Population is aging, and younger residents often leave for opportunities elsewhere. Indigenous communities struggle with cultural preservation while adapting to modern economy. The military presence, while stable, is subject to national security priorities that could shift. Alaska's future depends on decisions made elsewhere, in Washington, D.C., in global energy markets, in international climate negotiations. The state has less control over its fate than its size and resources might suggest. What Alaska becomes depends on factors largely beyond Alaskans' control: climate trajectories, economic forces, political decisions. The frontier metaphor becomes ironic. The last frontier is profoundly connected to and dependent on the very civilization it seems to escape. And so Alaska remains, immense, indifferent, beautiful, harsh, changing yet eternal. It's a place that humbles, that reminds you of your smallness, that demonstrates daily that nature operates on scales beyond human comprehension or control. To know Alaska, even partially, is to understand that wilderness isn't the absence of something, but the presence of forces, geological, climatic, biological, that operate without regard for human desires or needs. Alaska doesn't care if you understand it, doesn't care if you survive it, doesn't care if you find it beautiful or terrifying. It simply is, vast and cold and magnificent, the last great reminder in America that the world is larger than we are, older than we can fathom, and indifferent to our presence. Rest now, if you can, with images of glaciers and mountains, of auroras and silence, of landscapes so vast that comprehension fails and wonder takes its place. Alaska doesn't offer comfort, but it offers something perhaps more valuable: perspective, humility, and the knowledge that there are still places where nature, not humanity, writes the rules. Sleep well, knowing that beyond the edges of civilization, beyond the reach of roads and lights, Alaska continues its ancient rhythms, unchanged and unchanging, waiting for no one.